All right, so that seems to work. Mhm.
Oh,
Hi, Greg.
okay. Well, that's working. That's
Mhm.
farther than I've gotten before.
Can't see you yet. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you see me?
No.
That's odd. It should be. I should be visible.
Uh,
Is that any different?
nope.
That's odd. I have a camera. You can hear me okay though, huh?
Yeah. Wait, it looks like you're. It looks like you might be coming.
Looks like what?
Something looked like it was changing.
Looks what?
Looked like things were happening, but no.
How about that?
Uh, hi, Mona. How are you?
Pretty good.
We're just trying to get Greg live.
Yeah, I see his little icon there.
Right. It's just a. His
No, I
audio.
don't know what's happening. It should be working, but
Mhm.
I mean, if you can hear my voice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, we hear you fine. So you could translate and sort of semi-anonymously.
Yeah, put a picture of Brad Pitt up there.
Uh-huh.
Picture of Cicero.
Hmm. Hmm. Where do you live, Greg? I forget. New Jersey?
New Jersey, right in the middle of New Jersey.
Oh, so you're not far.
Not too bad. 2 hours from Swarthmore,
Hmm.
basically.
And I forget, is Joseph your last child in college?
No, he has one younger brother.
Oh, okay.
He's in Kazakhstan now. I don't know if I mentioned.
Yeah, you said. Just where we want our children to end up.
Well, it beats Belgium today.
What happened in Belgium?
Some guy, suicide bomber in the central train station.
Ugh.
Belgium used to be such a boring place.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. The minute you stop following the news, things start happening.
Things you're probably better off not knowing about.
I guess so.
Okay, Karen is saying she
Yeah.
has a friend in Belgium.
Well, my sister goes there all the time, but I've stopped. You know, you start worrying every time something happens in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And my daughter had a good friend in the airport when it
Oh yeah.
went up, last year.
Hmm. So we still haven't figured out the chat. So Mona, you can't see Karen's chat, is that right?
Oh, no, hold on. I can. I just see that. Yeah, I see
Oh,
it.
maybe because you're promoted, it's any observers, which at the moment we don't have. Hmm.
Mm.
Well, we'll see if we're getting updates on 8th century Belgium and northern France. Sure. And why did you decide you wanted to be a medievalist? Well, you came to college wanting to be a medievalist. Why is that? Maybe a long answer. Shut her up. But why did you want to know how the Anglo-Saxons learned Latin? That's not a normal thing for a 17-year-old person to want to know. Hello, Irene.
I have a high question.
I realize you can't answer back unless I promote you, but never mind. I saw Joseph today. He seemed cheerful. Yeah, he's working in the library. In the Friends collection or the historical collection, one or the other, I forget which. All right, Margaret. I haven't seen Margaret for a long time. Hello, Margaret. Oh, I have to unmute you. Hi, Margaret.
Hi.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too. My dinner.
I think her room wins the prize for most interesting looking. Is that a piano behind you?
Yes, that is, yeah. And then our stairway.
Oh, and here's Jameson from are you in Nova Scotia? Hey, Margaret, are you still in St. Louis?
Yes.
Okay. You've been there the whole time since you left, right?
Yeah, and we're actually thinking of moving within the next year. Probably back east, but I don't know.
Oh, really? Yes, that's Margaret Henderson.
Yep.
Other than the intellectual part, the whole fun of this and meeting new people, which is sort of fun, but I like it better when they become people I already know. Having random former students turn up is really fun. Kind of the reward of the whole thing.
Right.
I mean, working with Karen and Bruce at the beginning was fun. Of course, they were former students. So how are we doing? Time.
Can you?
5 more minutes. Ooh.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It seems a little iffy. Oh, and now you're gone.
Wait, am I gone?
You were for a minute.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, eh?
They don't.
You guys are just a bunch of squares to me,
Right.
and not in the bad way. Sorry about that.
Well, that was a very good A, by the way, for going native. If you want to get your
Yeah.
citizenship, you have to practice.
Well, I have been here for a while.
Yeah.
So how's it looking?
You keep going in and out, and then you just moved. I mean, which is different.
It's muted.
I was muted.
Are you muted? No, you're not muted.
Not muted?
I don't think so. Just a little vague. Hello, Brian.
Hi. Hi, William. Hello, all.
Okay, nobody's muted. Jen's coming in. Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Oh,
Hi,
Oh,
Jen.
Paula's here. Good.
Jen, is that you?
Yep.
No, you can all hear me then.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see you.
Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, Karen, I didn't mean to promote you. Did you want me to promote you? Karen, oh, I can't.
Karen's muted.
I think
I'm actually eating dinner, so don't look at me.
okay. Did I promote you by accident or did you promote yourself?
I don't think I promoted myself. You might have
I
promoted
was
me.
trying to
by-
promote Paula. Well, if you're willing to stay, after all, Margaret's eating. Everyone seems to be.
I just
Finish it.
I suspect my dogs are going to bark a lot, so I may need to mute myself if I can figure out how to do that.
Okay. Well, I can mute you. Wait, who was that? That needed to mute?
Okay, I figured out the mute button, so I'm going to mute myself so you don't have to hear the dogs.
Okay. The high point of this class was when I had a student sitting right next to me because he didn't want to be online, and he just started crunching on carrots. Just it was just the carrot is not an internet-friendly vegetable.
I'm eating poached salmon, so that shouldn't be a problem. But a friend of mine in Toronto, a very fine medieval Latinist, actually turned herself orange by eating too many carrots during
No, I don't think he was eating too. I wasn't worried
dissertation
about the
writing.
quantity,
So
just,
let that
the sound quality. Hi, Bob.
Hi, how are you? Can everyone hear me?
Mhm.
So I think we can hear everybody. Paula's muted, but we can unmute.
Yeah,
Paula.
I muted myself just in
Oh,
case
okay.
there are interruptions and,
Okay.
I can always
That's fine.
unmute.
As long as everyone feels like they can talk if they have to. So we've got Greg. We've got Margaret. Victoria may not make it. She's on some trip. She's somewhere else in Montana on her way to England. And so she may not make it in time to her internet connection. Jameson's now gone down because his connection's awful. Jameson is in the country in Nova Scotia, which I guess is a less internet-friendly place than Toronto. Which I guess I could have guessed in advance, really. Jameson, do you want to just watch, or do you want me to promote you? I could. Would you rather just watch? Okay. Okay. That sounds terrible. All right, I'm gonna.
Am I back in?
You are, but you've got some feedback loop. Oh, now he's gone. Well, I think he's watching. He can comment. He can be a medievalist. Okay. Oh, yes. So Jameson's bowing out. Let me just check everybody else. So Gwendolyn and Irene are watching. Gwendolyn, we still don't know who you are. Mona is a librarian and an ancient, an old book librarian and Chaucer enthusiast, language of Chaucer enthusiastic at Michigan Library. Margaret is a former student, Latin teacher.
I taught Latin after college, and then I've spent the last 15 years working for the electric utility doing nothing related to Latin at all.
All right.
It's a nice day job, though.
Yeah.
But I might be going back to teaching Latin.
Oh, that'd be fun. And Brian, you're some kind of neuroscientist.
Yeah, I do brain research on psychosis and also effects of marijuana use.
Wow.
But I've had a long-term interest in kind of late classical to medieval transition and started taking Latin a few years ago. And it's just delightful to be able to read these texts together.
Well, it's
Yep.
kind of amazing to have all those skills. Bob, I forgot what you do. You went to Swarthmore, but you didn't do classics, right?
I didn't do classics. I did economics and history.
Oh, well.
Now I'm a lawyer. And then, a number of years ago, I took up Latin.
Well, I'm sure it makes you a better lawyer. So Paul is a medievalist from, well, at one point from St. Andrews, right? And
Yeah, I also have a classics degree, actually.
Oh, really?
St. Michael's College in Vermont. But yeah, I got my medieval history degree at the University of St. Andrews.
Great. That's cool. And Karen, who's just gone away, is also a medievalist and a former Swarthmore student. And Jen is, we've never met in real life, is our collaborator and a Latin teacher in Western Massachusetts.
Yep.
And Jameson is a graduate student at Toronto and a former student, although you never actually took one of my courses. Is that not true? I don't think you ever darkened the door of my class, which is fun.
Wait, that's definitely not true, William.
What class did you take? Well, never
Not
mind.
the slightest.
I have no memory of teaching you in actual any class.
I believe you wrote in one of my papers, something about me being like kind of a lazy writer.
Oh, maybe that does sound familiar. Anyway, and Greg is a journalist from.
Former, used to be, yeah.
Yeah.
Now
Anyway.
I guess I could describe it as retired.
Okay. And Gwendolyn, because you guys only some of you can read this. Gwendolyn is a 2016 graduate of Smith, where I majored in medieval studies and English and haven't figured out what I'm doing now. Well, none of us have.
Right.
Right. Well, anyway, so, and Irene is a student at Swarthmore, and I don't know who Blake is, but so Blake, introduce yourself in the chat section if you want. Someone suggest, I think it was Gwendolyn's point last time that she wanted to know who people were. And now you know, right? Because we can all sum ourselves up in 1 or 2 sentences, right? I had to do this at some point, a little biography. I just summarized it in this little tiny paragraph, and I thought, wait, it surely was more interesting than that, but not really. Anyway, so we're ready to go, I think, except for Victoria. If someone can think about if they want to join in, take Victoria's thing and up.
If you need to demote me to make room, don't hesitate to do that because I got promoted. So
I know, but if you're willing to stick with it, if you want to stick with it, you're welcome to join it. We love having you.
hang out.
Okay, so I'm just thinking out loud. I need to open this up, and we're going to go live on YouTube in a minute, which is sort of the official recording. So having done that, we're now live. We're ready to translate at 10.2.
Okay.
Which is Greg. Greg's camera isn't working, but his voice works fine. And we're in the middle of this. If you remember, we had this description of the loser teacher, right? The guy who was old and had all he had going for him was that he had a little experience, and he was clearly not up to par as far as Abelard was concerned. And we now get the tree. What would you call it? Metaphors? The tree, literary allusions, the tree, the tree, the theme of the tree at 2.2. Take it away, Greg.
Ad hankitaque cum accessissim ut fructum inde colligeram deprehende illam esse feculneam, qui maledixit Dominus, stio illam veterum quercum, qui Pompeium Lucanus comparat, dicens. Okay, when I'd gotten to that tree, when I gotten to him, when I had gotten there, I in order to gather some fruit, I got it that it was that fig tree that the Lord cursed, or else the old oak to which Lucanus compared Pompey, saying, "Stat magni nominis ombra, qualis frugifero quercus sublimis in agro," etc. He stands the shade of a great name, like an oak, like a sublime oak in a fertile field, and so forth.
Yes, very good. I find it very strange. The second parallel I still find very strange, right? I mean, it just doesn't really seem to make the right point about being a tired out old loser. But right, is he just citing Lucan because he's showing off? Because it's the best tree image he can think of? You know, the withered fig tree from the Bible makes perfect sense. But Pompey was genuinely a great man who, I guess, who was the shadow of a great name, but he's standing tall, right? Am I the only one making a problem here?
No, I agree. I found it
the first, but not
difficult to make sense of.
Yeah, I agree that it's weird.
Okay. We'll keep going.
It could be the thing that he likes about it is this idea of simply being the last biggest survivor.
Yeah,
Right.
I think if he'd stayed with I think umbra nomini magni nominis is kind of a cool way of describing a tired out old professor, right? It's but if you then talk about him standing high in the field, he's not. That doesn't seem so appropriate, or unless it's that he dominates the field even though he's pathetic. I guess that works.
Could he have been gently his treatment of the professor a bit? I mean, when you compare him to someone cursed by God himself, you know, maybe he's saying, on the other hand, you know, here's a comparison that might make him proud instead of just viciously angry.
So he's more sympathetic to
maybe he's just being his best shot at diplomacy.
Oh, it seems an odd time to be diplomatic, having said what a complete loser he already was.
Yeah. But on the other hand, he's like Pompey.
You mean Pompey?
Yeah.
Pompey the Great. Yes.
Gwendolyn pointed out in the chat that this also does say something about the state of the field, that it is a fertile field at this point, and he's just this, you know, sterile ancient oak.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I like that. The field's good, but he's not. Yeah, thank you. Okay, keep going. Just in case anyone missed it, the word inde in front of colligerem, so that I could gather the fruit from there.
Yeah.
It's not really necessary in English. Other than that, I think it was perfect. Keep going, Greg.
Hoc igitur comperto non multus diebus in umbra eis ociosus Iacui. Therefore, having acquired that, I didn't lay around too long in the shed, illegally in the shade. Paulatum vero me iam rarius et rarius ad lectiones eius accidente, quidam tunc inter discipulus eius eminentes graviter id ferebant. In a little while, indeed, I was less and less frequently, or rarer and rarer, going to the lecture, going to the readings. Indeed, then some of the eminent among his disciples took it sorely. Graviter ferebant. Quasi tanti magistri contemptor furum, as if I was a despiser of such a master.
Good.
Pruende illum quoque adversum me latenter commoventes, pravi suggestionibus ei me invidiosum fecerunt. Thence, accordingly, I would say moving him against me. Prava suggestionibus et me invidiosum fecerunt.
They made
crooked suggestions. They
yes.
They made me invidious, or they made him invidious to me. I mean,
yeah, in the sense of hateful to me. I mean, they made him hate me.
Yeah.
Me hateful to him.
Yeah, me hateful to
Yeah,
him.
it's hard to translate hateful without getting it wrong, isn't it? Right? They made Anselm hate Abelard, right? Not the other way around.
Or at least be ill-disposed to him, yeah.
Right. Ill-disposed, that's nice and clear. Sort of invidious and hateful are just difficult words. Also, by the way, tantus is ambiguous in English too. If you say such a teacher, of course, it can mean what you obviously know that it means, which is such a great teacher, right? But it means such a big teacher, such a great man. And of course, in English, such can mean that, but it could also just mean that kind of a guy. I think everything else. I don't have anyone have any?
So, I'll have just a side comment, since some questions have come up about pronunciation in the past. I would just note that otsiosus wouldn't be spelled that way except in places where people are assimilating their T's before front vowels. So that spelling is something that a Romance speaker would do, but say an English speaker would not do in this period. So lest you think that medieval spelling is always all wacky all the time, there is some underlying rationale.
So can you pronounce, so they would say otsiosus?
Well, I would say it's either osiosis or otsiosis, or possibly maybe even oxiosis, but I don't think so. I think it's like TS.
Right.
We'd need to check George Riggs' article, which I recommended but haven't reread. But the point is that you wouldn't get the cross spelling with C unless there were unless you were in a language community that used that pronunciation in its own language. And if you were in a place where C's were either always hard or never sounded like T before I, then you just wouldn't make that cross spelling. You wouldn't have this as a native spelling. So it's an indication of the pronunciation of the scribe, if not the author.
It's interesting that it's C in the reading and C in the vocabulary.
Greg, we didn't hear that.
I said in the reading it's spelled with a C. Down at the bottom of the page in the vocabulary, it's spelled with a T.
Well, that's because that's my editing strategy. I'm in the footnotes, I'm giving the classical vocabulary
So you can look it up.
as a way of helping people make their way through it. And also so that classicists learn the right words, right? But more the first thing, so that they can, it's easier to recognize in the classical spelling for some people. So that's not a comment on what the manuscript said. Paula, you were going to say something?
I was going to say, now isn't Abelard a northern French speaker, right?
Yes.
Languedoc.
I think
Yeah.
it depends what.
So, because I did notice that the Francophone a bit, but my experience is mostly in southern France and northeastern Spain, so Languedoc. Do you know what the differences are between those two in terms of how they're addressing Latin?
I think the Languedoc is closer to
I
Latin.
don't.
It's closer to Latin than the Languedoc, perhaps.
Karen, that's a question for you.
Yeah, I don't know the answer offhand. I think the point that the southern dialects are close. Well, the southern dialects are closer to Spanish and to Italian, which are in turn closer to Latin. That is, they're not phonologically changing as much.
Right.
But the particular effect of that on Latin pronunciation at any given moment, we all need to go read George Riggs' chapter in that book I recommended last week, which I did not reread before this session, so I don't have a specific answer for you. I will tell you that the CI for TI spelling is something that you see in French in England of this period as well as French in France. So it's a pretty widespread Francophone thing.
Right.
So Norman French. Yeah. Because in Languedoc,
Well,
I mean, a soft C or a soft S or conversion to an S, you could see, you know, like Saragossa from Kaiser Augusta, you know, Barcelona, when in Spanish would be Barcelona, because the Catalan has a lot of softer, and I think Languedoc, the Provençal, would have a lot of softer C's type of things going on. So I think it's interesting that the Northern French is more of a hard C.
Okay.
Yeah, I just haven't read Latin written by definitely known Southern French scholars to be able to give you a good answer.
Okay, just curious.
All right, let's go onwards. 11.1, Margaret.
Lillian, would you mind if before we went on, if we could go back to the Lucan passage?
Sure.
And I admit I didn't look it up before just now, so you know I could have. But I actually think it makes a lot of sense given how he described the teacher. So if you keep reading, like I don't think that line about the fruit-bearing field is very helpful, but as it goes on, it describes the trophies that people have hung on the oak tree and how all the leaves have fallen off. And I think that really actually goes with exactly what he was saying about that teacher, that, you know, people are still like, you know, coming to see this guy. That's kind of like the trophies hanging on the tree, but he doesn't have anything to give them. The leaves have all fallen off. And I think he took that pretty exactly with what he said in the paragraph before.
Okay, great, thanks.
I was kind of struck
So Pompey came to a sticky end, so that's,
yeah.
I was kind of struck by veterum quercum. In English, an old oak is kind of a reverent term, but vetus isn't something you want to be, is it? I mean, it's like, I'm trying to think of a worn out, wizened, shrunken word in English for aged. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think veterus has a particularly negative valence in Latin. It's hard to think of a Latin word for old that means worn out and obsolete. I mean, all of the Latin vocabulary for agedness means old and therefore revered, old and therefore better than what we have now. So I don't think veterus is strongly one way or the other, but I don't think it means shriveled and useless. I just think it means old.
And it might mean towering. it's so old, it's so tall and
Mhm.
spreading branches.
Right.
And you also have the old Roman concept of the ancestors, the old ones, pretty much literally, who are looked up to and revered. I mean, if you lived long enough, you became a respected elder just by virtue of living. Now, a lot of these people, it's not that people didn't live to the lengths of time that we see. I mean, some people did make it past 100, a very few, but most people lived pretty hard lives and died relatively young. You know, their 40s or 50s.
Well, you're respected as long as you're a man. You know, that's very gendered in Latin. Old women
Right.
are, the invective against old women is just horrifying.
And that's true. But they can actually laugh at old men too, right? So you remember an old soldier is a disgrace, and so is an old lover, and so they can laugh at old men.
And nuns up until around this period are still pretty revered. So certainly, you know, they might be laughing behind her back, but an old woman who was like who's in a position of power, they're not going to be laughing to her face.
All right, moving on from old age and its joys. 11.1, Margaret.
Accidit autem quadam die ut post aliquas sententiarum collationis nos scolaris in vicem iocaremur. Yes, but nevertheless, it happened on a certain day that after some seminars, some comparisons of theological opinions, we scholars were joking around in turn, one after another. Ubi cum me quidam animo intemptantis interrogasset, quid mihi de divinorum lectione librorum videretur, qui nondum nisi in philosophicis studeram. When, or then, when when someone asked me in the spirit of a tempter, what, or almost how, what seemed to me, how it seemed to me about the reading of the divine books. That close. They asked me, who hadn't studied anything yet except in philosophical subjects, not in theology. I'm not hearing you. Are you hearing me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
William, you're muted.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I muted myself.
And her too. She is too.
I was trying to figure out.
Okay, I'm good now.
I'm trying to figure out where that wishing sound is coming from, but I'll just ignore it.
Let me try muting myself and see if that makes the whooshing sound go away.
Nope.
Well, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's much
Okay.
better.
It was probably my air conditioner, so I'll mute myself until I have something to say. Sorry about that, guys.
All right.
No, now it's back. Weird.
Anyway,
Sorry.
respondis saluberumum quidem huius lectionis esse studium ubi salus anime cognoscitur, sed me vehementer mirare quod his, qui literati sunt, ad expositionis sanctorum intelligendas ipsa eorum scripta vel glosse non sufficiunt, vid alio scilicet non egeant magisterio. I responded, indeed, that the study of this reading is the healthiest kind, the most useful. When does he mean when we're talking about the health of the spirit and the health of the soul is considered? But I responded that I marveled vehemently, greatly, that that to them who were learned, or to those who were learned, the scripta ipsa, the readings of these men themselves, or the glosses, the explanations, are sufficient. And then back to ad intelligendas. Is that for the purpose of understanding the explanations of the holy ones? So that certainly they don't need or lack another teacher. Sorry, is that like professorship or position or title or something?
I think
Already?
you don't need any other teaching, I guess. Right. It's not teacher, it's teaching.
Right.
They don't need any other more exposition. They just the glosses and the script and the text themselves should be enough.
I think they said authority. I think that's not a bad translation for magisterium here, because it's sort of the authoritative content of the teaching.
Yes. Plus, it has all of that Philip Pullman overtone, right?
Or papal, depending on your point of view.
Thank you, Margaret. That was great. I don't think any other, no grammatical issues, no translation issues. We're good. So now, class, people, friends, oh, there's Greg in real life. Hold on. No? There's still someone hearing all that noise?
Yeah.
Barely.
Now it's gone away again.
I think it's because he was moving. Greg was moving. Somebody was moving.
But it's not Greg.
Oh, okay.
Because I muted Greg and it's not him.
Okay.
I don't know. Everyone be very still. That's good. All right, so Victoria hasn't turned up yet. So, friends, who would like?
You want me to? William, shall I have a crack at it?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I haven't super prepared this, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, we're.
Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we're 11.2.
11.2. Okay. Irridentes plurimi qui aderant, on hoc ego possem et agredi presumerem requisierunt. Shall I do one sentence at a time? I'll do one sentence at a time. Lots of those who were there laughing asked whether I could or would presume to attack it, to try it. Respondi me id si velent, experiri me paratum esse. I responded that if they wished, I was prepared to give it a try. Tunc inclemantes et octius irridentes certe inquiunt, et nos assentimus. Queratur itaque et trodatur nobis expositor aliquius inusitate scripturae, et probemus quod vos promittitis. Then shouting and laughing even more, they said, sure. agree. That's a passage exposition of some uncommon passage of scripture, and test what you have promised.
Yes.
Et consensuerunt
Before you
omnes in obscurissimo. Sorry?
Before you go on, just
Yep. Yeah.
I think the computer swallowed those hortatory subjunctives, which I think are
Oh,
important
okay.
to miss. I think we just lost the audio.
Okay. So what I said was I made them into I treated them as if they were first person plural, but it's really let an exposited passage of some uncommon passage of scripture be sought, and let it be given over to you.
Yes.
Or let's find a passage and let's give it to you.
Yeah.
And let's test what you promised.
Good. Thanks. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
I had a question about that line. Why is it you plural?
Good question.
Good.
Same reason he says nos all the time and noster.
Ooh,
Those aren't the
this
same.
can't contain Abelard's ego. It is weird that they would address him in the plural, but I wonder if there's some. I mean, I tend to attribute everything to Abelard's ego, but I wonder if there's some underlying protocol of second-person pronouns
That's what I was
operating
wondering.
here.
I
Are
was
they
wondering-
weighing him?
Could the plural be the equivalent of a you formal?
Right.
Yeah, in French.
Yeah.
I was wondering.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably the only really good answer.
And if so, is he doing that because their Latin's not as good as his? Because he doesn't do it elsewhere that I noticed. Is he like actually trying to represent what they said?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, it is, he's presenting this as reported speech.
Right. Right. I was wondering, I think it's that same question once you ask the question about whether this is VU, right?
Yeah.
But does anyone know? Who knows about this stuff? There must be whole books written about Latin and its relation to French.
Yeah.
Books that I have no
I'm sure
interest in reading, but I thought maybe somebody else could read them for us and get back to it.
We can investigate.
Is it possible we're getting into the formal VU kind of format now?
Right.
This early on?
Right. That's what we were wondering.
I do have some friends who do Old and Middle French, and I will ask them if they.
That's great.
Nice.
All right. Good. Keep going.
Okay. Did I do the et consenserunt sentence yet?
No.
Okay. Et consenserunt omnes in obscurissima Ezequielis prophetia. And they all agreed on an extremely obscure passage of Ezekiel, the prophecy of Ezekiel. Assumpto itaque expositore statim incrastino eos ad lectionem invitavi. Sorry. So taking up the passage of scripture, I immediately invited them to a lecture or reading the next day. Qui invito mihi concilium Dantes dicebant ad rem tantam non esse properandum, sed diutius in expositione rimanda et firmanda mihi hac tenus in experto vigilandum. So they, giving me advice against my will, said that one shouldn't hasten to such a great matter. But
you did get the
let's see.
Right?
Sorry?
That one should not hasten to such a great
Right.
matter.
I see. I said shouldn't, and it probably got swallowed by the computer. That one should not hasten to such a great matter. But that one ought to keep watch longer to Vigilandum longer in exploring and strengthening the exposition, or sorry, that I inexperienced up till now in this stuff ought to work longer, ought to stay up late and work harder in exploring the exposition and in firming it up. And I'm not at all sure about that sentence, so if anybody has a correction, please let me know. Indignatus, sorry?
That was right.
Okay, cool. Indignatus autem respondi non esse meae consuetudinus per usum proficere, sed per ingenium, atque adieci vel me penitus desiturum esse, vel eos pro arbitrio meo ad lectionem accedere non differe. So insulted, however, I responded that I was not, I was not hastening because of the because of my habit, but because of my genius. I'm not positive about this. And I added, sorry, William, go ahead.
I would say I answered that it wasn't my habit. It wasn't of my habit.
Yeah.
To make progress by practicing, but rather
by just being brilliant. Okay.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Right. That makes better sense. Thank you. That makes a lot better sense.
Basically, he wings it.
Yeah. Yeah. I am in the habit of winging it, not of practicing. That makes great sense. And I added that that either either I would stop altogether, or they should not put off coming to the lecture according to my will. So like either we should just call it off, or they should do it on my terms.
Right, they should. Right, so I think that, yes, you have to sort of rewrite it so that it's pro arbitrio meo is the point, right? That they wouldn't not come. Yes,
right.
Very good. Any thoughts, comments, criticisms? Ooh, that gets rid of the noise. Mona, it's you. Sorry.
It's a tiny thing. Your note suggests that incrastino in classical Latin would be incrastino die. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever seen that. I've seen incrastinum. I've never seen incrastino die. I didn't search for it, to be fair, but...
All right. I'll look that up and check.
Because if it meant on the next day, you wouldn't use a preposition in classical Latin.
Right.
The ablative of time when.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Not, helpful for anything in particular.
Well, I might as well try and get it right. That's a plan. I
have a question a couple of lines back about that mihi hac tenus in experto vigilandum. Is vigilandum a gerund and mihi is like dative of agent? Is that?
Yes, it's
the way I took it.
It's a gerundive.
Right, gerundive.
Thank you.
So it's the
dative of agent.
Right.
Yeah, so you supply essay with it from earlier in the sentence, and it's a passive periphrastic or a gerundive of obligation with a dative of agent.
Right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right. So we're now at any questions? Should we go on? We're at 12. Bob, are you ready?
Okay.
Thank you, Karen. It was very good off the top of
You're welcome.
Unprepared.
Et primae quidem lectioni nostrae, haucitum interfuere, quod ridiculum omnibus videretur mei, adhuc quasi penitus sacrae lectionis expertem itam propere agredi. And indeed, you then were present at my first teaching, because it appeared to everyone that I was ridiculous to approach it so hastily. I guess me, up till now, almost having utterly no knowledge of sacred teaching. Omnibus tamen, qui appaverunt, in tantum lectio illa grata extitit, ut eam singulari praeconio extolerant, et me, secundum hunc nostrae lectionis tenorem, addorsandum compellerant. But to everyone who came, that teaching emerged so pleasing that they praised it with an extraordinary declaration. And they compelled me towards more glossing in accordance with this tenor of our teaching.
Yes.
Quo quidem audito, qui non interfuerant, quaeterunt ad secundum et tertium lectionem, certatem concurrere, et omnes pariter de transcribendis glossis, quas prima die in coeteram in ipso earum initio, plurumum sollicitiasse. And having heard this, those who had not been present began to run together eagerly to the second and third teaching. And likewise, all were anxious for the transcribed glosses, which on the first day, from the very beginning of them, or which I had begun from their very beginning on the first day.
Yes. I'm blanking out on what that actually means.
They were anxious to receive the written down glosses, which he had begun in that first lecture.
Right. So there weren't many people there for the first day, but they heard he had such, they were so interested in his teaching that they wanted copies of what they'd missed. Right.
You know what, this is a really interesting snapshot of the procedure for glossing and for getting notes on lectures, because we think of glosses as the marginal commentary that we physically see in manuscripts. But clearly, the origin of that is the teacher lectures, the students take it down in their own copies, and then the teacher's teaching gets copied into the margins of manuscripts. So the glosses here are being used both in the sense of the stuff that accompanies the passage already, and the stuff that the teacher said the other day that you want to quick get a copy of.
Right.
So we've got the creation of glosses captured in this little bit.
Right. So it's interesting. So we do think of them as writing them in the book, but they were actually writing them in advance, and then they were.
Well, they might have been writing them in their books because it's a feature, which would also be a new thing in this period. So it's a feature of the 12th century and beginning in the early years of the universities that every student had a copy of the Bible, and they had an authorized copy. That is, the universities would, that system isn't fully developed in the period that Abelard's writing about, but it's starting. The stationers of Paris would sell clean copies of the Bible in small formats. This is exactly like the 12th century student's Bible that Michael Cothran bought for the Swarthmore Library. You can go look at one. So that when you were sitting in lecture and a teacher was lecturing, a master was lecturing on the Bible, you would actually have the text in front of you, as opposed to the early medieval system, which might still have been in use to some extent, of students taking notes on wax tablets, and of people basically dealing with text that they heard and memorized, and then temporary forms, because not every student could afford to have their own Bible, but in the 12th century, students were beginning to be able to afford to have their own Bibles. But we have poems of this period, like Baudry of Bourgueil has a lovely set of poems in the 11th century dedicated to his wax tablets, which are all about how it's really hard to read glosses scratched on wax tablets when your eyesight begins to fail. So we know that was also used. So, it's hard to tell from this anecdote what's happening, but we are getting into the period where people could really have been taking down notes in books.
Interesting.
Are there any restrictions at this time, do you know, of people owning Bibles?
No, people are precisely encouraged to own Bibles. Everybody has to go to the Paris stationer and either borrow a copy to copy themselves or buy a pre-made copy. The other thing that makes note-taking much easier in this context, in the beginning in the university environment of the 12th century, is instead of having to prepare parchment yourself, you can go to the stationer and buy a pre-made quire. So you can buy the equivalent of a moleskin notebook to take your notes in, already sewn into a little booklet of 5 or 6 sheets, 10 or 12 pages. So you take a booklet with you to a lecture and make notes in that, if you didn't want to make notes in the copy of an actual Bible. So the possibilities for doing things textually are much greater now. But no, the notion that people are not supposed to own Bibles is a freaky late medieval thing. We're not in that world.
Okay. Any other thoughts? We ready for Mona?
I mean, again, it's a small thing, but I thought this might confuse people. Right at the beginning of that passage, that prima quidem lectione nostrae pauci tunc interfuere, what interfuere is, that it's an alternative third person plural perfect, and it's not an infinitive, because I know my students always think those are infinitives.
I know. Thank you. Okay, Mona.
Okay, this is 13.1.
Yes, take it away.
Hinc itaque praedictus senex vehemente commotus invidia et coram dam persuasionibus iam adversum me ut supra memini tunc stimulatus non minus in sacra lectione me persequi cepit quam antea Guilelmus noster in philosophia. So, itaque from this point, the aforementioned old man, who we almost forgot his name was Anselm, having been provoked, moved to intense envy, and then having been goaded by the convictions of certain ones, quorum dam, already against me, but supra memini, as I mentioned above, not mentioned, but mention above, I think, right? He, meaning Anselm, persecuted me no less in sacra lectione, like what he's glossing, his divinity, or theology, perhaps,
yes,
than our William, our understood teacher William, in philosophy.
Yes. And just so in case anyone's unclear, capit persequi is really he began to persecute me. So capit is coipit, and then the infinitive persequi. Good, keep going.
Okay. Erunt autem tunc in scholis huius senus duo, qui cateris praemunere videbantur, Albericus, Scilicet Remensis, et Lotulfus Lombardus, qui quanto de se maiora praesumebant, amplius adversum me accendebantur. Moreover, there were then in the school of this old man, Anselm, duo, understood, two people, two students, who were who were considered or seen to stand out from the rest, namely Alberic of Rheims and Lotulf the Lombard, who, the more they used to presume or presumed or were presuming rather great things to say about themselves, the more they grew incensed or were incensed against me.
Yes. The more they had the more ambitious they were, the more mad they were at Abelard.
Right.
Makes total sense. Right.
He's like stealing their thunder or something.
Yeah. And if they hadn't been ambitious, they wouldn't have worried about it. But
right.
Yes.
So
good.
This is
keep going. 13.2.
13.2. Horam itaque maxime suggestionibus sicut postmodum deprehensum est. Sinex ille perturbatus impudenter mihi interdixit in captum glissandi opus in loco magisterii sui amplius exercere. And so, especially perturbed or disturbed by the instigations of these men, as was later discovered, that old man, Sinex ille, shamelessly forbade me to further carry out or perform exercere, amplius exercere, the enterprise of glossing the work in the place of his own instruction, meaning in his school.
Yes.
Magisterii sui, in place of his authority. Hanc vide licet causam pretendens, ne si forte in illo opere aliquid per errorum ibi scriberem, ut pote rudis ad hoc in hoc studio, ei deputaretur. Manifestly or openly alleging this reason, nay, lest if by chance I might write something in error, I naturally utpote rudis ad hoc, naturally still inexperienced in this study,
good,
might write something in error in that work there, that it might be attributed to him.
Yes, I think that's perfect. Right. He was pretending that if by any chance I made a mistake, given what a beginner I was, it would be chalked up to him, blamed on him. Good.
Okay. Quod cum ad aure scholarium pervenisset, maxima commoti sunt indignatione super tam manifesto levoris calumnia, quae nemini umquam ulterius acciderat. And when this particular bit of information had reached the ears of the students, they were maxima commoti, they were moved with great indignation at so open, manifest a false accusation of envy, which had never happened to anyone before. Quae quanto manifestior, tanto mihi honorabilior extigit, et persequendo gloriosiorum effecit. The more manifest this was, the more honorable it was for me. And he made me, effecit, understood, he made me gloriosiorum, more glorious, more famous, by persecuting me, understood me.
Yes.
In persecuting, by persecuting me.
By persecuting. A nice gerund. Good. Any thoughts? Quibbles? All right. Thank you, Mona. I'm going to mute you now because
Okay, sure, that's
you
fine.
can unmute yourself when you can talk. That's right.
Okay, sure, that's fine.
Okay. Yes, I don't know where that sound is. You'd think a library would be quiet, but never mind. So Brian, chapter 14.
Host Pocos itaque dies, Mauritius reversus, scholas mihi iam dudum destinatas atque oblatas. Therefore, after a few days, I returned to Paris. The school that long ago intended and was to be bestowed to me. Unde primo fueram expulsus, from where I had first been expelled. Anis aliquibus quiete possedi. I held quiet for some years, which sounds very hard for him.
Well, it doesn't just mean he didn't have any trouble.
No, he found a way, I guess.
It didn't mean he wasn't talking. It just meant
Right.
he was living a life of, he didn't have any hassles, right? And everyone gets that possedi governs destinatas, right? The scholas destinatas, right? I finally got hold of the schools that were destined and given to me long ago that I got expelled from.
Well, I missed that. It was too far a reach. But
I know. Yeah.
Thank you. Atque ibi in ipso statim scholarium initio glossos ilas Ezekielius. Then, in that place of the school, I initiated those glosses of Ezekiel. So in that school, the school he's returning to, quas lauduni in caperam, which I had begun at Leon, consumare studui, I was eager to complete.
Yeah, initio is the noun. It's not a verb. So in the very beginning of the school, I was enthusiastic to complete, or I made an effort to complete the glosses.
Right. It's like the first thing I did as a teacher was I went back to those glosses. It's an awkward phrase, isn't it? The initio scholarum seems slightly odd, but yeah.
So yeah, I was wondering between a verb and a noun there. So it would be in caperam consumare, or let's see, studi. Let's see,
yes,
right? I had begun,
I'd begun. I was enthusiastic. I made efforts to complete the glosses of Ezekiel, which I had begun at wherever that is, Laon.
Right.
Good.
Okay. Well, it gets a little more tangled here. So, quae quidem adeo legentibus acceptabilis uerunt. and indeed, as much as they read that was acceptable,
they were so acceptable, as much as they were acceptable legentibus to the people who were reading them, the readers.
Yeah, I think what you said the first time was right, William. They were so, to such an extent, adeo.
Mm-hmm.
They were acceptable to the ones reading to such an extent.
Right.
That.
Right. So it's a result clause.
Yeah.
And the tricky adeo is that tricky thing. It just doesn't look as much like a result clause word as tom or tantus or something. So and also I think putting it in front of legentibus instead of acceptabiles is nasty, right? Because it's so much more acceptable is the key concept setting up the result clause. And then Abelard has taken adeo away from acceptabiles just to annoy us 800 years later.
It worked it puzzled me.
Mm-hmm.
After whatever 800 years.
Right.
Okay, let's go on. Ut me non minorem gratiam in sacra lectione adeptum iam crederunt. So they believed I had already acquired no lesser grace in sacred readings or interpretations than they had observed in my philosophical lectures.
Yes, I think that's right. So that they thought that I had acquired no less grace in my my theological teaching than I had as a philosopher. Right. I don't know why I'm just thinking out loud because it's a tricky sentence. Good.
Okay. Unde utriusque lectionis studio scholae nostrae vehementer multiplicate. From which, with the enthusiasm for each reading, our students were greatly increased. Quanta mihi de pecunia lucra. So greater to me the monetary profits. So he's
do you know where I think I think this is right, that maybe where you have gone off, or maybe I'm wrong, is that if you supply the verb to be with those multiplied students, that you don't have a subject for comparare. But I think it's our incredibly increased multiplied students acquired however much profit there was for me in money, they acquired that much glory. But Jen is shaking her head and looking.
So this is the same thing that I did last week. It's not one of the correlative ones. It's an indirect question. It's right. That whole thing, ex fama te quoque latere non potuit, that fact is not able to escape your notice.
Right.
So it's not able to escape your notice how much profit from money, how much monetary profit our students provided me.
Right.
Right. So William is right that schole, the whole schole phrase is the subject of compararent.
Right.
Yes.
And Jen is right that the whole thing that's a pair of indirect questions after
right.
Latere non potuit.
Right. But I sympathize with Brian because, of course, in Latin, you're always being invited to supply the verb to be, and then you have to then not de-supply it. It's so it's just not easy.
Well, I just was seduced by the idea that the greater this fame was, the better he was, the more money we'd be making. You know, it's such a funny thing to be bragging about after all this discussion of philosophy and theology, is that the money's pouring in.
Right.
Well, and he likes those correlative phrases so much, but he also appears to like these paired, like almost exclamatory, like quanta lucra, quantum comparare, quantum gloriam. Like he likes that construction too. And he likes to put it before the actual verb of speaking. A lot, like these tend to come before the verb of speech, which is very hard for an English speaker.
Pairing is very common in this time period. I don't know about northern France, but in southern France especially, you see a lot of, somebody will take two words that essentially mean the same thing and go, and this and that, and that, and they will just keep on written. And there's a lot of pairing construction and things like that. People are very fond of pairing and comparing things that are not terribly different or very closely linked, and you're kind of saying, why are you repeating yourself? But that was something in which they were fond, kind of like Anglo-Saxon likes alliteration.
Is that called chiastic structure?
Maybe.
Well, chiasmus is the ABBA construction. So you could have a pairing that was chiastic. All chiasmuses are pairings, but not all pairings are chiasmuses.
Well said.
All right, thank you.
Jen, can we go back that very last clause, ex fama?
Yeah.
What's going on there, and what is te?
So lateo here is taking an object, is taking a direct object. It doesn't just mean to lie hidden. It means to escape the notice of, like lanthano in Greek.
Okay.
So that whole indirect question is not able, latere te, to lie hidden from you, but like to escape your notice, ex fama, from the reporter, from the rumor reporter.
Or even because of rumor, right?
Yeah.
Right. But you're right. I need to gloss that.
That I don't think that's a usage of lateo that students know.
Right. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That was a good learning experience.
Thank you, Brian. Keep at it. All right, we're at 15.1, and Paula gets. We're on the cusp of the fun stuff, right?
Oh yay!
Finally.
Sex and violence. Take it away, Paula.
Sort of. Anyway, sed quoniam prosperitas stulto semper inflat, but then success always puffs up fools. Et mundana tranquillitas vigorem enervat animi et what?
Yeah, you were right. Enervat.
Okay. Animi et per carnales ille quebras facili resolvit. And worldly tranquility weakens strength of the spirit, and through fleshly allurements easily enfeebles it. Although spirit's probably soul.
Did you do the first part? Because prosperity always blows up stupid people?
Yes, but since success always puffs up fools.
Right. And worldly calmness weakens the vigor of the mind and easily resolves easily dissolves itself, right? I guess what is absolute.
Whatever it is enfeebles?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought it took Wagoram as an object again.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
And dissolves so it enervates the vigor, and it dissolves the vigor easily through those carnal temptations.
Yeah.
Right.
That was too easy to say carnal, so I went with fleshly.
Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Cum iam me solum in mundo superessa philosophum estimarem. when now the only philosopher in the world I would have estimated myself to advocate.
Oh, wait a minute.
And I would have.
I would have thought, when I thought that I myself was the only philosopher left in the world.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah,
Well,
right. Yeah, I can see that.
Right, because supersum means to survive. It doesn't mean to triumph over, which was supero superare. So I think that's what it means. Jana, I look to you always.
Absolutely right.
Okay.
Okay. Nec ulam ulterius inquietationem formidarem, nor would I have feared any further disquiet.
Or just, nor did I.
Yeah.
Right. So so formidarum is imperfect subjunctive in a
Cum clause.
cum clause, right? So since I was no longer fearing any disturbance, and
Okay.
then you get to the main verb, I guess.
Frena libidini capi laxare, I began to relax from the bridle to pleasure.
Frena is neuter plural accusative. I began to relax the bridle or
Bridle.
the
Bridle from, okay.
reins.
So in other words, I let go the reins of pleasure, we would say, but literally to pleasure, right? So the harnesses to pleasure, I relaxed them.
Okay.
Okay. I need to rewrite that note about that.
Yeah, because that was kind of confusing.
I know it's
I did read the note.
right. It's not wrong. It's not wrong. It's just misleading.
Yeah. Qui antea vixeram continentissime, by which before I had lived within the limit.
Qui, I think, is just I who. It's that kind of loaded relative pronoun, right? Be a lot easier if it said ego qui, right?
Okay.
But it modifies the subject of capi, which again, because Latin doesn't have doesn't need the pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see it, but qui is masculine singular, so it's I who I've lost my I who had lived in the most continent way in the past.
Okay.
Before that.
Et quo amplius in philosophia. Vel sacra lectione profeceram. And in proportion as moreover in philosophy or in holy reading I would make progress, or I made progress.
I would like to point out, because I haven't done it lately, that profeceram is pluperfect, because I had
made progress. Yeah.
Maybe I could write a whole book on the pluperfect. That would.
No, I didn't say that before. I just didn't write it down.
Nobody would read it. Never mind. Yes. Keep going.
Amplius philosophis et divinis immunditia vitae recedebam. Let me find it again. Moreover, from philosophy and the divine, I fell back into a filthy life.
Yes, I would say amplius means really more. I was doing that more, right?
Okay.
Not more. It's not a connective word. It's like I was all the more pulling away from. Is that right? From the. What was I pulling away from?
From the philosophers and the divines by
my ugliness of life. Yeah. I was right. Thank you.
So is amplius kind of a correlative or not, just parallel?
Yeah, you could supply an eo with the second amplius to match the quo. He leaves that out a lot.
Oh, good point. Mm-hmm.
So like the further I had had success in philosophy, the further I was receding from.
Right. Thank you. Right. Quo amplius eo amplius. Good. Keep going, Paul.
Okay. Constat quipe philosophos nedum divinos. I surely stood together with philosophers by no means divine.
Wait a minute. So constat is impersonal, and it just means it's a known fact, right? It's
Okay.
and in quipe, and in fact, it's totally obvious, or it's a totally known fact that philosophers,
Right.
no less, and even more so, theology people, theologians, and then you have that, what comes next is just explaining duinos, right? That is people who are intent on the exhortations of sacred reading, right? It's totally clear that philosophies, and even more so theologians, they poluisse maxime continentiae decore. They have totally been powerful, we would say, in becoming continents, right? I'm just thinking out loud, but I'm looking at Jen to see if I've made any mistakes.
Well, in the glory of continence of chastity.
Yes, right. Wait, decor.
Yeah, ablative of respect with poluisse. They
Or
are the
maybe by the grace of chastity.
Oh, right. So decore is ablative.
Yeah.
I guess I was thinking it was AE.
Oh no, decore isn't.
Right. Decus decoris, ablative, perfectly regular classical ablative. Right. And then genitive continentii.
Yeah.
Right. This whole E thing gets me down. Is that clear, Paula?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
The trick, part of the trick is that constat, but also that nadum is really an annoying little word, right? So it's philosopher, let alone theologian. And it's also tricky because it's not it's a kind of a leap in thought, right? Here he's saying, I'm getting worse and worse and worse. And you might expect him to say something like, that's how people do, right? People just do that. They get worse and worse. But in fact, he says, what he's saying is, but other people, right? Philosophers and theologians, they do the right thing, and they are all strong in the glory of continence, right? So, and he doesn't give us any helping words to sort of say, like, however, right? Right, which is what you might expect, right? Because I'm going down the tubes, morally speaking. Philosophers and theologians, they're all honest and good, and he doesn't explain the connection. So it's tricky.
I think he's saying the connection is the prophakeron, the more I had success, the further I went away from the philosophers, because philosophers don't behave like that. Like, so that it's prophakeron. Prophakeron there seems to mean, that something very, like, he's not getting better at philosophy. He's getting better in his reputation for it, but not the actual fact.
I see. So, because by definition, all really good philosophers are poor, right?
Well, and virtuous.
Yeah.
Right.
Unlike Abelard.
Right. Unlike Abelard. Right. But he doesn't say, I was only appearing. He doesn't, I think you're right, Jen, that there's the implication that it's fake. But he says, the more I am succeeding in the teaching of both kinds of, the more I'm teaching both in philosophy and in theology, the more I'm successful, the more I'm getting, the more I'm becoming what's the word, vicious, right? And then he just says, what he really wants to say is true philosophers don't do that,
Yeah.
right? So it is, you know, despite his arrogance, he's very arrogant about his vice, or at least honest. You want to keep going, Paula?
Okay. Or do you want me to translate id est sacra lectiones
Oh, I'm sorry.
exorciani, or go on to 15.2?
Why don't you go on to 15.2?
All right. Cum igitur totus in superbia atque luxuria laborarem. When therefore all in pride and also luxury. I know that translates as lust, but strictly speaking, it's luxury, but it's not quite luxury the way we do it. We call it today. Kind of like how medieval sodomy is not the same as modern sodomy. Different definition. Okay. I labored.
Mm-hmm. I was like struggling,
Yeah.
right, in my pride and my. I would just translate lechery just to kind of knock the luxury meaning out of our heads, because it's going to be, at least. It's really hard to think. I just have to constantly keep reminding myself that luxuria doesn't mean having gold taps in the bathroom. It means sex,
Yeah.
right?
It means sex, but it also means just sort of carnality in general, a lust for worldly things, a lust for women, a lust for, you know, it's harsh, but this is a medieval guy we're talking about here. And in this sense, he is kind of seeing women as objects.
Right. Right, but I think that's the point. Is it? I mean, I think, especially given what's going to happen in the story,
Yeah.
I would have thought lust was exactly the right word. So
Well, yeah, sexual lust, but also remember she was rich and well connected,
sure.
and that had something to do with it.
Well, that has something to do with sexual lust, I think. But anyway,
Yeah.
Never mind. Move on.
Okay. Let's see. Utriusque morbi remedium divina mihi gratia licet nolenti contulit. And as one in sickness, it became possible that I changed myself in unwillingness to a remedy with divine grace.
So try starting with Divina Gratia as the subject. That might help.
Okay.
So the divine grace
Gave me,
it brought me a utriosque morbi remedium. It gave me
A remedy of each illness.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're right that I mean, this is why we want long marks in our Latin text, right? Because you totally, I don't know if this is what you did, Paula, but you totally want to take that divina gratia as ablative. But of course, Jen's totally right. It's the subject of contulit. So divine grace brought me a remedy of my sickness. Licet nolenti, even though I didn't want it, right? Nolenti modifying mihi, and then licet just kind of meaning even though.
Yeah, the word order here is awful. It's
right.
So confusing.
It's really difficult. And then keep going. And
okay. All right. Ac primo luxuria deinde superbiae. Okay. And is it, and first for lust,
yep.
Then pride?
Right. In other words, the remedy for lust is going to come first, and the remedy for pride is going to come second.
Yeah.
And in case you don't know what the plot, everyone knows what the plot is, right? The remedy for lust is why Abelard is the most famous medievalist in the medieval person in the entire world. And the remedy for pride is that his book is going to get burned, as he explains kind of later on.
And somebody mentioned chiasmus earlier. That is a chiasmus, because in the first part he said superbia luxuria, but now he's changed it to luxuriae dende superbia. So there is a chiasmus.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Luxuria quidem, lust indeed. His me privando, depriving me of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Quibus hunc exercebam, by which I worked at this.
By which I was practicing my luxuria.
Okay.
Which is why I think we all want it to mean lust. Right? In other words, the first thing that's going to happen is that he's going to lose the instruments of his lust. I'm being very euphemistic because this is the internet, right? Okay. So you get it, right? Okay. So that's the first thing that happens. And then the remedy for superbia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is
vero,
right.
Pride truly.
Mm-hmm.
Quae mihi ex literarum maxime scientia nascebatur.
Mm-hmm.
Which from the greatest knowledge of letters grew with me or sprang forth from me.
Which sprang forth to me from the knowledge of literature, I guess maxime above all, right?
Okay.
Okay, and it really means that I'm really famous for writing books.
Okay.
And then because he's quoting it, this is tricky too. Juxta, according to that word of the apostle, knowledge blows us up. Knowledge, what's the word? Inflates us. Knowledge puffs us up.
Puffs us up.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, again, the word order is really hard. Humiliando me. This is how the pride gets punished.
Humiliating me with burning.
By humiliating me with the burning Ilias Libri of that book, Quo Maxime Gloriabar.
Yeah.
In which by burning that book which I was particularly proud of, in which I was particularly glorying. Right? So that's a very perverse word order, it seems to me.
Yeah.
Or powerfully rhetorical, if you prefer.
Yeah.
And then finally, a relatively straightforward sentence.
Curious nunc rei utramque historiam, of which now each history, various,
Each history, of which thing, right, cuius rei, of which thing each history.
Various ex ipsa re quam ex auditu cognoscere te volo. Truly from the thing itself, how much to the one I heard I wish to know you.
I wish you to know.
I wish you to know, yes.
I want you to know more truly from the thing than from hearing. In other words, I want you to hear it from the horse's mouth rather than from the report.
Yeah. Wayria says the comparative adverb that always tricks people.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then, I guess, in the order, in fact, in which they proceeded. I'm a little, Jen, where is the verb in this sentence?
Wolo.
Okay.
So I want you to know both stories in order, and then you just fill everything else in.
I want you to know it more truly from the very fact than from the hearing.
Yeah.
In the order in which they happened.
Yep.
I want.
Did Abelard's book survive, or was it? I mean, because often they symbolically burn these books.
Apparently, it really was burned.
Hmm.
I mean, we get told this later after the Council of Soissons, they actually burned his book. I think he kept a copy, but
that's what I mean. I mean, did it survive, or did they burn the only copy?
No, it survived. But in fact, I'm sort of trying to read it kind of in my spare time. It's actually his Latin. The Latin of it's called the Theologia Summi Boni, and except for the fact that there's no plot,
I've heard of it.
It's the Latin is really easy, right? It's just you don't have a lot of movement because there's all this theology. So I'm not sure how I feel about it. Anyway.
Is that the thing where the Latin might be easier because it was the notes from his lectures that were written down?
I don't know. You'd have to. Karen has gone from us.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's notes. I assume it was an official literary book.
Okay.
It's just that I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe because maybe he's not so wrought up. Maybe he's just trying to explain the Trinity. If you're trying to explain the Trinity, you don't want to get too complicated grammatically, right? Whereas here in our text, he's obviously invested emotionally in getting it across. I don't know. We've lost our Abelard.
We have.
So
we left like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. But anyway, well, thanks everyone. Good night.
Right.
Good night, William. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, are we actually meeting on July 4th?
Well, I'm actually good. Wait, July 4th. Is that?
Because you had it listed as one of the dates we're meeting, and I was like, really?
Well, if it's Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday, but still.
Skip it. Does everyone just skip it because of patriotism?
Well, people have lives, William. That they do things.
Okay. Well, we'll just cancel. Cancel for Tuesday. I'm happy to cancel for Tuesday. I don't actually have a life, Ryan, or at least my life does not revolve around
barbecuing
July 4th parties. I'm going to a July 3rd party. Never mind. So there's that. But
you can also reschedule to a different day. I mean, I'm not bothered by the 4th of July, but we can reschedule to a different day that week.
All right, well, let's consult online. We've got to get through. I'm going to be away next week, so either the laptop will work, or Jen and Jameson can deal with it. But anyway, we'll communicate through the usual channels. It's great to see you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wonder if Gwendolyn and Blake have stuck with us. Congratulations. Goodbye, Blake. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.